I thought that quote is so perfect for overfunctioning, underfunctioning reciprocity, which I think is one of the concepts in Bowen theory that is most useful to business team leaders. So here are some of the common business applications that I see in my work of this concept. The frustrated successor, I'll just read these with you. The frustrated successor who's not willing to pursue a position in another business. Frustrated with his parents, but not willing to pursue a position in another business. The manager, and if you want to play with this, you could sort of try to think, is that the overfunctioner or the underfunctioner? The manager who always reminds their staff of their deadlines. The founder who doesn't risk giving away authority, allowing his successor to fail. The CEO who's blindly preoccupied with always having the best strategy, best idea, right instincts. The founder who complains of a spoiled generation while he, while accommodating unreasonable demands. And the successor brother who can't stop talking about how weak his brother is. So you can see the yellow star. The concept of overfunctioning, underfunctioning sits there within nuclear family emotional process. It's also been called, the concept's also been called, it's called various things in Bowen's writing. He called it different things at different times. Over-responsible, under-responsible reciprocity was one name. Also, the dysfunctional spouse. So here, this concept of the nuclear family emotional process, here's the basics on it. It's chronic anxiety generated by level of differentiation of self is bound in one of four ways: distance, conflict, the family projection process, or the triangle child, and then the fourth one that we're talking about today. So individual thinking puts function and dysfunction along a sort of up-down spectrum. There's the functional individual and the dysfunctional individual, and they're sort of seen less as a reciprocity. But Bowen was observing this in his original research with extreme symptoms, schizophrenia, and then later, and notice it is factual that this dysfunctioning and this overfunctioning exist together. A lot of people, I notice when I teach this concept in businesses, a lot of people turn it into individual thinking. They use the language of systems thinking, but their mind is in individual thinking. An example of that would be saying, I'm an overfunctioner, as if it's a characteristic of their individuality, a character trait, rather than an aspect of a relationship process that could exist in one relationship and not in another. I notice people never want to say, I'm the underfunctioner. They really like this, I'm the overfunctioner. So what is this idea of reciprocal functioning? I'm just going to throw some definitions down here. Function, a thing that depends on and varies with something else. Reciprocal, the distinctive idea of reciprocal is that one party acts by way of return or response to something previously done by the other party. And Bowen's quote, in our experience, each family member functions in a variety of ways, determined quite as much by reciprocal functioning of other family members as by forces inside of himself. Now, I don't know what you think. How much of what we do is determined by the reciprocal functioning of others around us versus forces inside of ourselves, who we are, our personality? Like whether we're an extrovert or an introvert. So this idea of overfunctioning, underfunctioning is very different than the individual spectrum. And I'm going to diagram that for you here. The idea is in a marriage, people come together with their basic self being equal. But then over time, this process occurs. So here's two individuals whose basic self is equal, and the gray arrows represent the relationship process between them, interaction process between them that they're playing an equal part in. And over time, this happens. One borrows self from the other, and the other lends self. So that over time they look like one is dysfunctional and one is functional, or hyperfunctional even. So I'm just going to show that again. This process would be running, 1,000 times, per month, and over many months, they come to look like that. Here's a funny comic. Which is the overfunctioner, which is the underfunctioner? I just thought that was hilarious. They seem so different on the outside, but there's a similarity underneath. That's overfunctioning, underfunctioning reciprocity. Here are some business examples of non-reciprocal individual thinking. I'm high execute. He's indecisive. I'm the communicator. I'm the listener. I'm an extrovert. He's checked out. He doesn't take initiative. He's not a team player. And I find this, it just seems to be continually helpful to my clients when I can help them think more about reciprocal functioning rather than, in many situations, these ideas can be useful to people, but I find in the trickiest situations, they tend to fail people. I showed you that slide already. So again, these are some of the common situations that I'm talking about where it's a very high stakes situation, and the idea of reciprocal functioning can be very powerfully useful to people in situations like these. And there's an optimism in this concept, and this fits my experience, that these things can get better with the slightest decrease of the overfunctioning or the slightest decrease in the dysfunctioning. So either party on the two sides of the reciprocity can interrupt the process and lead it in a different direction. And it's amazing sometimes how responsive the system is to that.